Our foster care system is shattered. And this podcast is about how we as a community can come together to bring about change. Change in the system and changing the lives of children in foster care. Hi, my name is Rob Shear. I'm the founder of a national charity called Comfort Cases. I'm an advocate for children in foster care. I'm a public speaker. I'm an author of A Forever Family. But most important, I'm a dad to 5 of the most amazing kids. Welcome to the Fostering Change podcast. Well, here we are again, another amazing episode of Fostering Change. I am so hard to believe how fast this year is going by, and so much love that we've gotten from people who have listened to our podcast or have gone to our YouTube channel and actually watched it. Our next guest, I actually met through social media, and then I did a little bit of stalking. I was so impressed. First of all, I was impressed with the fact of what an amazing actor he is, but also the fact that he goes beyond by being a foster parent. Being a foster parent is not the easiest thing to do. And when I meet people who become foster parents and who have opened their hearts and their homes to children, they're my heroes. So, ladies and gentlemen, for all of you out there, please meet my friend Cody Mayo. Cody is an actor in Los Angeles. You have done shows like Marvel's Runway, Fox 911, TNT. You did Major Crimes. You've kept
right,
busy, my friend. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It has been an interesting ride.
So tell me a little bit about what it's been like being an actor during the pandemic, first of all.
Well, like everybody else, everything got turned upside down. I will say that for our specific medium, it just immediately stopped. There was no work. So there wasn't even a furloughing option. There were just no jobs. And it was immediate, and it was like a cut, almost like the rope had been cut, and you just felt like you were floating off, and there was no idea. No one had any idea how we were going to do this. However, I will say this: if history has proven anything, it's that people love entertainment, and they need entertainment, especially in the hardest of times. So I think all of us had hope that we would figure out a way, and we did. Everything is digital now, so you can literally be anywhere and audition for things that you would have to drive all over LA to be able to audition for. So we're making a way. It's a new way, but we're making it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. It is definitely a new way, but I will have to say, I've missed the movie theater. And
Yeah.
I actually went into my first theater not long ago, and it was nice to be back. It was
Right?
nice to see the big screen. And by the way, I have been watched you like you would not believe. Um, and so I've caught up on all the shows. But you and your wife, though, for what you and Casey do, it's just amazing to me. So what made you decide to be a foster parent?
Well, we had always, I think early on, even when we were dating, we had talked about wanting to be involved in some form of adoption. And we didn't know what that would be like or even really what that was. We just knew that it was in our cards. We always had this heart to help out and to be there for people who need it the most. And so, fast forward life, we had a couple biological children, and I was working on Runaways at the time. So we felt like we were in a good place to continue building the family, but we stopped and we went, you know what? I think now's the time to take a risk and do something challenging, something crazy, something maybe that we are not used to or we don't know anything about. And that's what started the journey towards foster care. We specifically chose foster care because we were so overwhelmed by the crisis that's in LA County. Now, we know that there's crisis all over the United States in every neighborhood, and that homes are needed everywhere. But specifically in LA County, there was just a mass amount of children that had very limited options. And so that led us to say yes. And then, Rob, I learned about ICWA, which I didn't know what ICWA was. And it is the Indian Children Welfare Act. And this is a federal law that basically protects Native children and tries to its best to connect Native children to Native people for permanency, for adoption. Well, turns out my family is greatly tied to the Choctaw Nation in Oklahoma. That's where my family's lineage comes from, and we're on the rolls there and everything. And so I got educated about ICWA, and all of a sudden there happened to be some Native children in LA County, and LA County found out that I was a part of the same tribe as these children, and they were on us so quickly.
Wow, that I'm very familiar with I'm familiar with the fact that kids who want to stay, that the tribes are wanting the children to stay, but I'm also a little bit concerned about that. And
Sure.
I'd love to hear about what your experience. And again, I'm a true believer that foster care is not the answer. Keeping a child
Right.
with their family and trying to figure out how we can support the family is the key. But there are times that kids must come into the system. And so,
Sure.
do you feel that children who come from any type of tribe are given less opportunity because of that particular ruling?
I find, well, it's a complicated subject in that if you look at the origin of why ICWA came to be and why it was started, there's good intention everywhere on it, in the sense that there was a time in the United States where a lot of Native tribes, and the children specifically, were more or less being whitewashed. The tribes were being decimated. And, if you go back and look at, for instance, the history of boarding schools in the United States with the Native Americans specifically, there was a protection put in place to try to preserve these tribes. So I understand, that point of view, and I guess the genesis of it. However, to your point, here's the challenge. If permanency for a Native child relies on the ability to secure a Native parent, that means you have now taken the number of options for that child from what's already not a great number of people willing to participate, down to a very small number of people. And so what ends up happening, sadly, is that a lot of these children end up staying in the system and get bounced around from home to home to home, where there are potential candidates out there who would provide a great home and a great life for them, but simply can't do the permanency because maybe they don't get approved by the tribe, or they run into conflicts with ICWA. So there are challenges for it. And to your point as well, I always come to the question, what is in the child's best interest?
Yes.
Period. What is in the child's best interest? Because a lot of these man-made constructs that we've created, these rules, the red tape, all of these things, a lot of them were created by people that have no understanding of the trauma the kids are going through. And so when we answer the question, what is in the child's best interest, I don't necessarily know that it is limiting it to a very small pool.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. My biggest concern are the people that are making the rules are people who have never, ever even spoken to a child in foster care.
Right.
Have never ever come and broken bread with parents who have chosen to open their homes to children in foster care. And that is it. It's just it reminds me, and not to get political, but it reminds me of the Supreme Court ruling, where I wonder how many of our Supreme Court justices have ever been in foster care, or have ever had been a foster parent, or have ever experienced adoption, or and what I keep thinking, and you hit the nail on the head, Cody, is the fact that what is in the best interest of a child. And I understand the bloodline. Let me tell you something. I'm a father that has 4 children of color. There is, no way that I'm going to change them, which, by the way, when we adopted our kids, that we were challenged, stating that we were going to turn them white. Nothing is going to change my children to be children of color. Simple as that.
Right. Right.
And I believe that kids from any tribe, nothing's going to change them. But this is where I think we make the mistake.
Mm-hmm.
We must educate ourselves about those tribes, about that
Right.
culture. Let me tell you something. I never in a million years thought that I could actually name performers who do rap music. But because I've, dived into my children's culture, it is important. No different than a child who comes from a tribe.
Right. Right. Yeah. And again, that's a great point. And what's funny is, Rob, is prior to the son that I have right now, we've had kids of so many different ethnicities come through our house. And in preparation of them coming, which, as you know, is like sometimes a 24-hour notice, we would hit the Amazon bookstore. I mean, just trying to read up on anything and everything, fiction, nonfiction, just to understand the voices. We're looking at artwork. We're putting things up in the house, putting on certain types of music that maybe we weren't listening to. And the truth is, even though me and my son now, we have the same heritage, I'm taking it upon myself to dive even more into that heritage and educating myself even more, because I find it important for him. So I totally hear you and agree with that.
Yeah. Listen, everyone. I mean, I'm so excited about this conversation with my friend Cody Mayo. Cody and his wife Cassie have had, how many kids now have you had in and out of your house, Cody?
I believe we've had 4 through 2020. So it was very different during LA.
Wow.
Yeah.
4 through 2020.
Yeah.
But you have 2 biological children.
2 biological toddlers.
Toddlers and that.
Yeah.
So I follow you on social media, and so I do
Yeah.
get to see the younger ones. And listen, to all of our listeners, those who are viewing, whether you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify or all of the podcast platforms, or maybe you subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is really a great conversation, and with that, we're going to be right back. This episode of Fostering Change is sponsored by Comfort Cases, a national nonprofit that is inspiring our communities to bring dignity and hope to youth in foster care. For just $10 a month, you can support the Comfort Cases mission to eliminate trash bags from the foster care system. For every $10 donated, a Comfort XL duffel bag will be given to a child entering foster care. Please help us be part of the change. Go to comfortcases.org and see how you can help a child entering our foster care system. So I am so excited for this second part of Fostering Change with my friend Cody Mayo. Cody is an actor that's done 911. He's done the Marvel's Runaway, and he's taught us a little bit about what it's like to be an actor during the pandemic, but also what it's like to be a dad. To be a dad to children who are entering the foster care system. We've all heard about it, for those of us that actually open up our ears or read the paper, about the pandemic that we have been in. The pandemic that in March of 2020, that we woke up and we didn't know what the next day was going to bring. Just imagine being a child. Imagine being a child. And that is what children in foster care feel every single day. Whether there is a virus that's floating around or not, they are in a pandemic, and it's up to us to make a difference. Cody, take the risk and don't underestimate your capabilities to give. Do you feel that you and Cassie truly took that risk and you've lived that?
I do. And it's funny because I think that was one of the biggest barriers of holding us back from really going into foster care. And what I mean by that is it's just the simple thought of, I don't think I'm good enough to do this. And I think that's holding back a lot of people from doing this. And part of our hope with my wife and I is to educate people that this really is anybody's ability. Like, the biggest enemy we have is ourselves. If we can get past the thought that we couldn't provide more, or we're not able to love more, or we're not able to give more, if we can get past that, it changes everything. It has truly been the most rewarding experience in an inverse way. We thought we'd be giving all this love, all of this attention to the child, which we do, but they give so much back to the family that enriches the whole thing in ways you wouldn't believe. So yeah, I think it's so important to move past that, and don't underestimate your capacity to give and love and serve. I think we're capable of a lot more.
Yeah, but I have to tell you, I have not experienced what you and Cassie have experienced. When my children arrived, even though their goal was reunification, my children never left. And
Got it.
so I never had that feeling that I always feared of a
Right.
child leaving. And you and Cassie have gone through that. You have had
That's
children
right.
near your home, and you've done what you were supposed to do, and the children were reunified. What I'd
That's
like
right.
to know is, even though your other two children, your biological children, are young, did you see an effect on them at all?
What's really interesting is that was a concern, and I think that is in the other foster groups that we're a part of, and trying to educate others in. One of the questions that always come up is, what do you do since you have biological children? There's this concern that the children that are with you, your biological children, wouldn't be able to understand, or wouldn't have the ability to go through the process of welcoming a child, and maybe potentially having to allow that child to reunify. And you know what we have learned is that the kids are capable of way more than we give them credit for. My daughter was 4 years old, just turned 4 when we started fostering, when we welcomed our first foster son into the house. My youngest son was 2. They were very young. And what we did is we prepped them before the child arrived by saying, hey, we have a friend coming over that's going to get to stay with us for a little while. And we're so excited. We don't even know when they're going to go home. We don't know what's going to happen, but what we are going to do is we're going to play games with them. We're going to teach them things. And my daughter's name is Lucy. And I would say, Lucy, this is going to be an opportunity for you to get to play mom. We're going to need help changing diapers and feeding and all sorts of things. And as soon as I poured the mold for her to step into an opportunity to lead, even at 4 years old, she blossomed. It was incredible to watch a toddler have these maternal attributes just start flowing out of her. Everything from waking up with us in the middle of the night, feeds, to help out or give us a burp cloth, to in the morning helping change a diaper. She was incredible. And the same goes for my son, who loves in a different way. He's very physical touch oriented. So he would cuddle or hug or caress their hand or whatever it was. And so when we got to the first experience of a child leaving our home, we simply just walked them through it, and by celebrating this idea that their parent or their grandmother or wherever they were going was in a good place now. They were healthy. And now they get to meet whatever the child's name was. And so we would pack them a box, like a present, with new toys and whatnot, and with a photograph of all of us, and we would send it on their way. And so I think, just as long as you remove the fear out of the equation and you just believe that your child is capable of surprising you, I think you'll be amazed at what can happen.
I love it. Let me tell you, there's something I've learned from there that I've never heard this before, and I hope all of our listeners have heard this. I love the fact that you put a box together, and with new toys and with a
Mm-hmm.
picture of your family. I say this all the time. children can never have enough people love them. And I really do, I understand the reunification, and I understand how important it is for children to bond with their biological family. But I always feel that we do a disservice by just taking kids and saying, okay, you've been with this family for a year, but you cannot see them any longer. But I
Right,
love how you
right,
give that
right.
little token. That to me is something that I'm going to remember, and I'm going to teach that, and that I think that is so important. So you've got three that are toddlers. You
Yeah.
probably don't sleep that much.
I've had a newborn for 1 year, Rob. We've had a
Oh,
newborn in our house for 1 year. So we've never gotten out of the phase of sleeping all the way through the night since the beginning of the pandemic.
wow. So how long has your last placement been with you?
Okay, so we're very excited because we are moving into the permanency phase with
Wow.
our current son. He has been here now 9 months, and all the wind is blowing towards this being a permanent solution for him to stay with us. So we're excited. We are cautiously optimistic. As you know, with the foster system, sometimes you just don't want to put all your eggs in a basket, but with going down that thought, but we feel pretty good that he's going to get to stay with us.
Well, let me tell you something. He is definitely won the lottery with the two of you. I mean, I want you back on the show because I want to hear more about, what's going on. And do you think that you, by the way, before we wrap this up, Cody, do you think that you're going to actually have more kids?
What we do, we're not going to have any more biological children. This for us is kind of the route we want to go, and we are open to whether or not this little guy he may have more siblings come along the way in the future. So that door is open, and just continuing to foster wherever we're at.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it's like with me, I have two sets of siblings that I refuse to split up. And, I
Right.
think, siblings, they deserve to be raised together. Well, listen, Cody, you are amazing. I cannot thank you enough, as busy as you are, to take time out and to be on Fostering Change. Listen, to all of the listeners out here, the most flattering thing that you can do is to actually share our podcast. Let people know about it. We need to educate our community. Today, for instance, I was educated more than I can imagine. And every single episode, someone else comes on the show, like my friend Cody, and educates each and every one of us. I think that we have more people out there that are registered and for people that are within tribes, whether it's the Cherokee Nation, whether it's the Choctaw Nation, and you need to look into that. Because, as Cody said, we have to give children the opportunity to all have a permanent foundation. Listen, Cody, thank you so much, my friend, for another
Yeah.
episode of Fostering Change. Cannot wait to talk again next time. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
I would like to thank all of you for listening to the Fostering Change podcast. You can subscribe on all of your favorite podcast streaming platforms, including Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Make sure you follow Comfort Cases on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter at Comfort Cases. Check out the Fostering Change blog at comfortcases.org. And I know some of you have a question, and I know some of you would love to be a guest. Please personally reach out to me at fosteringchange@comfortcases.org. That's fosteringchange@comfortcases.org. Then do me a big favor. Please help spread the word. Share this podcast. Share it with your friends and your family. Remember, I say this quite often, we're all part of the same community, and that community, it's not our zip code, but our human race. Let's all make a difference.